All right, great. Just do this. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Housing Acceleration Program, Cycle 2 workshop for our grant funding. My name is Stacy Cooper. I'm a senior planner on the Sustainable Communities team, and I'm joined here from SANDAG today with Lizzie Havey, who's a planner also on the Sustainable Communities team, Tracy Furchaw, our grants program analyst, Jenny Russo, our grants program manager, and Tweri Fowler, our Sustainable Communities program manager. So before we get started, let's do a little bit of housekeeping. Again, this workshop will be recorded and it'll be available at BidNet Direct. Please use the question and answers feature at the bottom of your screen to ask questions. And then when we get to the questions and answers section of this presentation, if you would like to make a comment or ask a question, please use the raise hand feature and you will be unmuted. On our agenda today was an overview of the SANDAG Housing Acceleration Program and the REAP 2.0 program objectives, eligibility, evaluation criteria, and allocation information, some example projects from HAP Cycle 2, from HAP Cycle 1, how to apply and other resources, and then we'll move on to questions and answers. I'm going to pass it over to Lizzie to get us started.
Hi, everyone. Again, I'm Lizzie Havey. I'm a regional planner on the Sustainable Communities section. We're going to start the meeting today with a quick overview of SANDAG's Housing Acceleration Program, highlighting where we're at today, and then go into some of the basics of the program before letting our team in the grants department talk a little bit more about the specifics. So many of you may be familiar, but our Housing Acceleration Program is broken into 3 areas: local jurisdiction support, data analysis and policy resources, and regional initiatives. The HAP Cycle 2 grants is definitely under the local jurisdiction support, and so that's what we'll be talking about today. However, SANDAG's HAP program and its many initiatives is made possible from state funding, known as the Regional Early Action Planning Grants, or REAP 1.0 and REAP 2.0. We started our HAP program with REAP 1.0 funding and kicked off some of its initiatives. And currently, some of the projects from REAP 1.0 that we're doing is our HAP Technical Assistance Program, our Regional Anti-Displacement Study, and our Housing Policy and Planning Tool that will be releasing the next few months or so. We did release the HAP Cycle 1 projects back in 2021 and awarded $1.9 million in planning grants. REAP 2.0, we have a much larger formula funded allocation at $43 million. This $43 million will be spread across various programs that support the focus areas that you see on the screen: infill development, housing for all, so forth. Although formula funded, there are still aspects of our REAP 2.0 application under review, but our REAP 2.0 application does have 4 different proposed uses. Again, local jurisdiction support, affordable housing programs, transit agency partnership, and tribal partnership. So this, of course, is under the local jurisdiction proposed use. Our program timeline, just want to make a quick note here, for REAP 1.0 and 2.0 are different than the grant expenditure deadlines. This is for SANDAG's allocation only, this timeline. We'll get a little bit more into the timeline of the grant coming up. But today we'll be talking about HAP Cycle 2, the call for projects. That's offering $4 million for planning grants and $12 million for capital grants. So this is different than our HAP Cycle 1 with the new category of capital projects. For any questions on our REAP 2.0 application or some of the other programs that we're doing, feel free to reach out to us at housing@sandag.org. And we can go to the next slide. So the reason we're here today is to talk about these HAP grants. What's different about HAP Cycle 2 is the idea that it's going to be a transformative and innovative planning that allows for planning and capital projects, including supportive infrastructure that will accelerate housing development in infill areas, facilitate implementation of the 6th cycle regional housing needs assessment, and advance our sustainable community strategy. We will go into a high-level timeline. So for these HAP Cycle 2 grants, what I really want to point out is the application deadline. The deadline is August 4th, 2023. You have some time to think about projects, and we are willing to provide technical assistance for these projects. We'll go into more specific dates later on, but just so you can note here, after the review and evaluation of the applications in October, we'll be taking the funding recommendations to RPC and the board of directors to then produce or to have the notice to proceeds go out in November to December. Lastly, I want to note the grant expenditure deadline for HAP Cycle 2 projects for both planning and capital is December 31st, 2025. I'm sure many of you are familiar with our REAP 2.0 program objectives. We sure are. But these REAP 2.0 program objectives, as outlined in the guidelines for the grant program, are the same for our internal grant program, the HAP Cycle 2. So each project will need to accelerate infill development that facilitates housing supply, choice, and affordability, reduce vehicle miles traveled, and affirmatively further fair housing. Again, we'll see these are the minimum eligibility. So in order to qualify the project, your project will need to make sure to meet all of those different REAP 2.0 objectives, proposed uses. Additionally, the project must be located within an infill area. For the sake of this grant for HAP Cycle 2, the projects must be located within or including a mobility hub, a transit priority area or TPA, or low VMT area as defined by SB 743. And of course, the eligible applicants are the 18 cities in the San Diego County and the County of San Diego. We're going to talk a little bit about the eligible areas. We have some tools. As you can see, this map depicts the eligible areas for the HAP Cycle 2 grant. Again, they have to be within or located in the mobility hub, TPA, or low VMT area. You can see the mobility hub is shown by the dotted purple, the TPAs and the solid pink line, and then the blue and the greens show the ranges of the low VMT areas compared to the regional mean. As noted in the call for projects and the applications, applicants will need to know whether they are in a TPA, a mobility hub, or what range of the low VMT. We will provide a demo in a little bit. However, just wanted to make that note, the application does call that out. We are requiring for the applicants to use this feature in our web-based map. So we'll get into the demo shortly, but the interactive map, we will want you to draw a boundary of where your project area is and then take a screenshot of that, and we'll walk you through that. But if you are applying for a project that is citywide, you can denote that on the application. There will be an area that states project area. You'll want to describe, various aspects of the project area. If it is citywide, you can state that it's citywide. We are working with our GIS team as well to update this map with the local jurisdiction boundaries. So that should be easy for you to see. If you have any questions regarding this tool, you can reach out to us again for technical assistance, and we can get more into the contact information. But before I pass it on to the grants team, and so you all can see what I'm talking about, we want to show you a demo of this interactive tool. So I'll let Stacy show how to use this tool and how you can interact with it for the project.
Hey everyone. So we have this interactive tool. As Lizzie mentioned, we will be adding jurisdiction boundaries to this for your different projects. What we'd like you to do when you submit your application is provide to us the location of your project drawn on the map. So if you come in here, zoom into your area, there's a drawing tool up here on the left-hand side. So using the drawing tool can outline, let me just change the color of this real quick. Like this, change the outline and draw. Obviously, you would zoom in a little bit further to be a little bit more accurate with your boundaries, but to come in here and draw the boundaries of your particular project. And then what we'd like you to do is come up here, print the screen. It'll create a PDF file that you can attach with your application. You'll also note on the application, we are asking you to provide the name of the mobility hub. And then we just hit print, the name of the mobility hub and the ID of the VMT areas that you're located within. So in order to get those, what you could do is come in here, click on this low VMT area. This is an 85 to 100% of the regional mean. And you come down here to the name, we've got 3380. And that's what you would provide us with in your application. And then in terms of the mobility hub, again, clicking on the map, and it tells us that this is the La Mesa Mobility Hub. So if you could just provide that information on your application as well. So you'll need to attach the map and provide us with the information on the low VMT area and the mobility hub. The TPAs don't have particular names, but we can see that from the map that it's located within a TPA. And I'm going to pass it over to Tracy so that she can continue with the presentation.
Thanks, Stacy. Again, my name is Tracy Furshaw, and I am the HAP program manager. I'm going to go over HAP Cycle 2 allocation information and some key dates of expenditure and commitment deadlines. So to recap, HAP 2.0, there's $16 million available. The breakdown between planning and capital, we have $4 million for planning, $12 million for capital projects. There is no minimum on either type of project for what their application is for. And see, Project Max grant awards, we have $650,000 per project on the planning, and we have a cap at $2.5 million on the capital project. Matching is not required. However, points are awarded based on evidence of matching funds. Again, the expenditure dates are December 31, 2025. Now, matching can be also not only cash, other state or local funding resources, but it could also be in-kind services, staff time. So that can be considered as a match as well. So you just need to identify your match in the application. Jurisdictions may submit multiple applications, and each application will be scored and ranked in each category in accordance with the call for project scoring of applications section. We do have a commitment to adopt for planning projects. The requirement is by December 31st, 2025, which is the grant expenditure deadline. For capital projects, it is 5 years after the end of the REAP 2.0 deadline of June 30th, 2026. So here we have some definitions for planning and capital projects, as well as examples of each category. So the definitions are here. Planning includes plans and processes to accelerate housing production, but will not directly result in the construction of a public improvement project. The capital will eventually result in the construction of a public improvements. Project phases can include environmental, design, conceptual, preliminary, or final right-of-way or construction. And let's see. Applications will be sorted into the application category corresponding to the type of project application that you submit. So it's very important that applicants apply in the correct category, so applicants are not deemed unresponsive or non-responsive. So if you have any questions regarding the correct category, please feel free to reach out to us for technical assistance. We would be happy to help. Our contact information will be provided later on in our slide presentation. Next slide. Okay, so here we'll just go over the planning criteria fairly briefly. So please reference the evaluation criteria in the call for projects for more elaboration, but I'll just highlight the categories that have the highest points that you can score. Criteria 1, 2, and 3, the acceleration of infill development, reducing vehicle miles traveled, and furthering fair housing, further fair housing, if I can say that right. It's the highest score on criteria 6 is the subcategories will also include pro-housing policies and housing equity, and they're both worth 12.5 for a total of 25 points available there. And for your reference, board policy 33 is linked to the left of your screen on the blue side. Next slide. So here are some examples of the HAP Cycle 1 planning projects. We'll go over briefly some of the overviews of the projects, but right on this slide, I'd like to just highlight Del Mar because they're in their conclusion of their project. There was a very innovative project, and they did coordination with the affordable housing at the state fairgrounds. They trying to develop policies and procedures with the state that can be used for other fairgrounds locations and surplus lands. They've identified concepts, including a mix of family and senior housing with below ground parking at various sites within the fairgrounds, including the Del Mar Fire Station. The project also included a phase 2 economic feasibility study of privately owned sites and commercial and professional zones within Del Mar, including the Del Mar Plaza. More specifically, staff and consultants identified incentives that the city could make available to increase participation in the incentive program and encourage owners to enter into agreements to deed restrict their ADU units for rent to low-income households in exchange for specified benefits tied to incentives. Did I miss anything? I know that Melinda, you're online, so did you want to add anything real quick? Okay, I think I got it all. Okay, so we will go into more innovative example projects in HAP Cycle 1 in the next slide. So we've identified a couple of projects that we'd like to highlight. Melinda Dacey is the project manager for the Encinitas Housing Production Assistance, and Carlos is the project manager for National City. Together we plan National City. So I'll go over a brief description about that because I think Carlos is unavailable right now. So, and Angelita Palma, if you're on and I missed anything, you're more than happy to jump in, and we're glad to have you. So let's go ahead and start with Melinda. Melinda, would you like to tell us a little bit about your housing production assistance project?
Sure. So I'm Melinda Dacey, a senior planner with policy planning and housing team here in Encinitas, and our Cycle 1 HAP grant tasks and projects that we had applied for grant funding on included an update to the city's PRADU plans. So those are our permit ready ADU plans, and part of the task for the grant funds for that update included the update to our PRADU plan specifically to address the city's green building code ordinance that had been adopted and put into effect, so that the public were still able to utilize those plans for processing PRADU ADU plans here at the city. Another one of our tasks that we included in our grant included the expedited permitting process for housing development. It had a specific focus on our housing element sites for very low and low income developments, in addition to ADU production or any new residential units being constructed within the city. And with that task, we had a contract already in place with a consultant, Civic Solutions, so we were able to utilize the grant funds to extend our length of term on that contract to continue that program, which has been fairly successful. We've had almost all of our housing element sites come in for applications review and processing at the city. And they also, after they got their discretionary approvals, came in fairly quickly for building permits as well. So we're seeing a lot of activity on those development sites. In addition to those two activities, we also use grant funds to conduct a displacement risk analysis. So it's to identify what types of local conditions are creating displacement amongst Encinitas residents. And we are anticipating bringing that completed report to City Council on June 14th.
Okay, well, thanks, Melinda. I'll touch on a few things about the National City Initiative. The City of National City has embarked on an initiative named Together We Plan National City, which includes the focused general plan update and a climate action plan update that includes a new opt-in floor area ratio based residential density bonus program called House National City. The general plan update builds upon the prior planning projects, including the 24th Street Transit-Oriented Development Opportunities Plan, which was a smart growth incentive plan in cycle 4. So we'll talk about how we can implement our planning projects to become live in capital projects as something that we might want to look into for HAP cycle 2. Let's see, Housing National City is proposed as an opt-in program for developers to use as a different way to calculate the number of homes proposed on a parcel, rather than putting a limit on homes based on what is called dwelling units per acre. It uses the site and unit square footage as well as allowable height of a lot to determine the number of homes that can be built. This metric is called the floor area ratio, or FAR. The intent of this new program is focused on development within areas served by high frequency transit. And I think, well, I don't see Angelina on here, but Carlos,
I am.
You have anything that you'd like to add?
No, that was a wonderful summary. So yeah, we had of course, our housing element was accepted or adopted in November of 2021. And we had the opportunity after completing the housing element to look at our general plan more holistically, to not only be able to implement all the legislative changes that have come about recently, but also look at this very innovative House National City program built after the complete communities model, where we looked at a floor area ratio based program instead of density per acre. This allows us to maximize the use of smaller infill lots. We don't have to wait until merging lots in order to build appropriate multifamily and mixed use types of housing along transit-oriented corridors. So we're well on our way to getting that to get approved by City Council in August. And that will allow us to provide affordability, mixed income affordability, and meet our RENA goals. So we're very happy to have been a recipient of HAP Cycle 1, and I'll look at the opportunity to do HAP Cycle 2 if possible. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Carlos. Okay, in our next slide, we'll go over the capital criteria. Capital projects have a possible scoring of 200 points. The higher categories also include 1, 2, and 3, which accelerate the infill development that facilitates housing supply, choice, and affordability, reduce vehicle miles traveled, and further furthering fair housing. But there's also a category in the capital criteria of project readiness, which has a fairly high point of 25 points that are available. So the capital criteria afford projects a higher points in category 7, which is the board policy 33. And we have shared that link with you on the slide here on the left. And also please reference call for projects for full evaluation criteria. So here's the slide where we ask you to consider how can you move previous planning studies funded through the SGIP or the HAP or other funding sources to implementation. And we have an example here, say the city of Santee had a HAP 1.0 planning project, called the city's town center. And so they might be able to look, if they're ready, to look at HAP 2.0 to kind of maybe implement that infrastructure. Also, as before I mentioned, for National City, they mentioned their 24th Street transit-oriented development plan. That might be something, if they're ready, to go forward. This call for projects might be something helpful to them as well. HAP Cycle 1 projects, the applications are available if you want to take a look at them on sandag.org/funding/grant program/smart growth and housing acceleration grant program. I'm going to make a reference here to the SACOG projects that they just were able to fund through this second cycle of HAP, through their second cycle of HAP. They were able to fund supportive infrastructure projects, which include storm drain replacement, improvements to existing storm drain systems to resolve sewer tie-in issues for multiple unit affordable housing projects, increased sewer capacity, and water main extension projects. And next slide. So this is also a great example, and this is in Vista. So if you can imagine, before the development of the affordable housing that you see here, there was a roundabout constructed in that area through this Smart Growth Incentive Program. And so that just brought more further investment into the area. So now we're looking at right here, we're looking at to achieve the broadest reach of use of funds. The capital project can be an investment to unlocking corridors for increased housing density. So this SGIP Cycle 4 project in Vista, named Paseo Santa Fe Phase 3, with an award of $2.5 million, is an example of preparing land for investment and housing opportunities. So right adjacent to this, you have an affordable housing project, which has 60 affordable units, an art gallery, a community room, resources, and residents. And this is known as Paseo Artist Village. Okay, so just a couple important dates to really highlight. We have your deadline to request application assistance, July 21st, 2023. That will also be the last date that questions can be submitted online. The application deadline itself is August 4th, 2023. And there is a resolution that's needed when you apply, or not when you apply, but it'll be due by September 3rd, 2024 for those applications. And again, this expenditure deadline will be December 31st, 2025. All applications will be submitted through BidNet. We do have links at one of our last slides that link to BidNet registration guide, the frequently asked questions, and the BidNet vendor navigation guide as well. Next slide. Oh, and here they are. And here's all of the registration instructions and BidNet vendor. So yeah, August 4th, applications and all materials will be well, the deadline will be August 4th, 2023, the submission date at 5 p.m. And if you have any, if you have any questions regarding the use of BidNet, you can email the grants distribution at sandag.org, and there's also a technical email information deadline, information that will go right to a BidNet vendor that will provide technical assistance. And with that, I think, just a quick overview. We'll be sorting our applications and according to categories after we do receive in August, receive the applications. Then we'll be putting together an evaluation panel to review and score projects using criteria included in the call for projects. Then they'll rank each application, and then funding recommendations, highest ranked application for each jurisdiction, then additional applications in rank order until funding is exhausted. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Lizzie to talk to you about the Sustainable Communities On-Call.
All right, so the Q&A session is coming up soon, but we wanted to talk about a resource. I know we just went over a lot of information. It's a lot to take in, but you can answer all your questions very soon. I'm sure we'll have a lot of participation, but we have this resource available. It's our Sustainable Communities On-Call. It's available for all jurisdictions in the county and the County of San Diego, of course. The goal of the on-call is to streamline projects with a pre-negotiated bench of consultants that can support the regional HAP program, as well as implementation of the regional plan and the sustainable community strategy. To be a bit more precise, SANDAG conducted this procurement so local agencies can utilize the list of consultants and pre-negotiated rates to conduct their own simplified competitive procurement and expedite the contracting process for local agency projects. Again, we're just hoping this can streamline the process for you of if you need a consultant onboarded, that this could be at service to you. The Sustainable Communities On-Call has a variety of planning services across 6 different categories: land use and urban design, community development, finance, equity, and so forth. So you would be looking at the different categories and seeing what project scope best fits what category, and we can provide some more information there. The total value is $25 million across all categories. Quick note, whether you're using HAP Cycle 2 funds or other funds for your project implementation, your agency would be paying for these services. The on-call merely streamlines the procurement process. And the on-call concludes in 2027. We developed a full toolkit for the Sustainable Communities On-Call that includes the category descriptions, the pre-negotiated rates, all the information that you'll need. This resource is available for your agency's use, again, outside of just HAP Cycle 2, as long as your project fits the scope of the on-call through a couple of steps we'll go over next. We can go to the next slide. So you'll be requesting this authorization from SANDAG and include a summary of the scope, estimated project budget, and project schedule. On the previous slide, we talked about who you can email. That would be Carrie Simmons or housing@sandag.org. Again, the toolkit lists who you can contact. Then you would, once authorized, the jurisdictions would request the proposals from all firms within that category. So basically, you would want to do that mini competitive bid. And what we want to share with you is that you would want to check in with your city council or even your city attorney. You want to make sure you're following your own procurement protocols. But these are basically the steps that can kind of outline once at the end of it, once you do your own kind of protocol for the procurement, you would want to notify SANDAG of the final negotiated amount of the contract, as well as notify the other firms, whether you selected or did not select them. that's kind of the basics of the Sustainable Communities on Call. We can provide the toolkit on request. So once we send out follow-up information from this webinar, if you just want to respond asking for the Sustainable Communities Toolkit, we can share that with you. There was some concern about sharing publicly some of the negotiated rates and whatnot. So we just want to make sure it's going into the hands of the local jurisdictions of who's actually eligible to use the Sustainable Communities on Call. With that, and I know we might have some questions coming up about the on-call, we can move forward to the question and answer section. And I see a couple questions have come up. Stacy, I'll let you take it away. I think we have some questions in the Q&A as well as the chat.
Okay, are sub-recipients allowed? Can someone clarify what they mean by that? Whoever asked that question, Beth.
So go ahead, Beth. So I see the question was, are sub-recipients allowed? Beth, I think you've been promoted if you want to share a little bit more about what you meant.
I was wondering if like water districts could be allowed to receive part of the funds.
Oh, that is a good question. I actually don't know that answer offhand, but I can get back to you unless somebody else from the SANDAG team knows if that can be done.
Okay, thank you.
We have another question in the chat. For any questions submitted on BidNet, will we be answering on an ongoing rolling basis or only answering after questions have been received at the deadline? Tracy or Jenny, if you could answer that one.
Yeah, the questions will be answered on a rolling basis.
And if I can just chime in really quick, Lizzie, I do think we allow subrecipients. The primary applicant, though, would need to be one of the local cities or the county of San Diego, but I believe subrecipients are allowed. We can confirm that and provide it in writing with the questions that we do via BidNet, but just to give Beth some insight.
And Tracy, I see another question in the chat. Does BidNet require a city registration or is it per individual?
I'm sorry, what was that? I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Does BidNet require a city registration or is it per individual?
It's a city. You could do it as a city. What we used to do in the past is just have like a table of different projects. You mean that the city is applying for?
It's a question in the chat. I don't know if Angie wants to give a little bit more context. It just says, I'm new to my role. Does BidNet require a city registration or is it per individual?
I think the question's about registration.
Oh, registration.
And when you register for a BidNet account, it's connected to an email address. So individuals from a city can set up their own. What will happen is on the backside, BidNet only allows one account for each tax ID. So if somebody in your agency has already set one up, there's a link in BidNet where you can ask for help and they'll connect all those accounts together. You'll see this talked about in the registration guide and the BidNet materials. If you get stuck for some reason, or if whoever set up your account has left or you're not sure, you can reach out to BidNet, or you can also send a message to us in the grants team and we can help you figure that out.
Great, thanks, Jenny.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
There's questions in the chat. I know Luis asked what the resolution should contain and does it need to be taken to a decision-making body. So yes, the resolution is required by SANDAG's board policy number 35. It needs to be adopted by whoever your governing body is, so your city council or the board of supervisors. There's a template for what needs to be in that resolution. I posted it to BidNet yesterday, so there's a Word version that you can download. It has the specific clauses in there of what we're looking for, and there's some notes in there so you can tailor it to your specific needs. If your city attorney or someone has some language that they want to add or tweak with it, usually it's fine. It's just watching to make sure it has the main points on there, which is committing to your matching funds and submitting the application to SANDAG and allowing staff to accept that grant award if it's made. The point of the resolution is to help you, if you receive a grant, be able to sign that grant and get working on your project so you don't have to go back to council and ask for them to adopt it. I know many of the jurisdictions like to do that and your councils want to hear that. That's perfectly fine for you to do, but from a contractual standpoint, you'll have that authority from them already to be able to sign that grant agreement. So that's the point of the resolution, is to try and expedite that process. Make sure you're aware of this. Don't wait until the end, because that deadline that's there, the September deadline, we cannot move that unless we go to our board and ask for an exception. So work on that. If you know you're going to be submitting an application, make sure you get on your agenda docket so you can get that in by that deadline.
Thanks. And jumping back to the question and answer box, Veronica's asking, is there a limit to the number of applications for each jurisdiction? No, we do not have a limit for the number of applications for each jurisdiction, but I'll let Jenny or Tracy talk a little bit more about how the jurisdictions will be funded based on rank.
Yeah, I'm happy to take this one. So as Tracy mentioned, we're going to split all the applications into the two categories. So all the planning applications are going to compete in one bucket and all the capital projects are going to compete in another. Those projects will get scored and ranked, and we're going to fund them in order of that rank. The first pass through that list is going to be to make sure that every jurisdiction that applied receives a grant. And then if we do have funding left over, we'll go back down through that list again and keep funding from there. So no limit on what you want to apply for in either category or within a specific category.
Great, thanks. Jenny, you mentioned there's some more questions in the chat. Oh, I can pull it up here.
Yep, we're kind of bouncing between the two.
Yeah.
There's a question about using the Sustainable Communities on-call, and does it need to use a city logo or the SANDAG logo? It can be a city logo. I think the folks that are on that on-call know that it's sort of being connected together and that we're working, but it doesn't need to be branded as, you know, a SANDAG solicitation, because obviously it's the city that's looking for that information.
And
another question for Louise. Sorry, Stacey.
Oh,
if our
yeah.
governing body has an umbrella resolution allowing departments to apply and accept funds, will it be acceptable or does it need to be our template? Send it to us. Most of the time those work, but I know some of the jurisdictions have not had specific language that we need to have in our resolution. So it's hard for me to tell depending on what's in there. Some of yours I've seen, but it might be you get a new one every year. So just send us, reach out to us through email and send us a copy of what you have, and I'm happy to take a look at it and make sure it's going to meet what the policy is looking for.
All right, and Jose, in the first round, did the number of application dollars request exceed available funding? No, it did not. In the first round, we had put out 3 million for planning grants, and we funded 1.9 million. So we have a much bigger pot this time around. So we're hoping that we get more applications and more jurisdictions interested. And then I see, can funding be used towards projects that are in progress? Tori, can you take this one?
Well, I saw Jenny just unmuted. I mean, I guess, Jenny, do you want to speak first to this?
Yeah, I can take this one. So projects that are in progress would not be reimbursable through the grant. It has to be work that's covered by the grant period. So once we award and we issue a notice to proceed, we're looking at doing those hopefully in November. So it would have to be work that starts after that period. And Tori, if there's anything you can think of that you want to add to that, feel free.
All right. Great, next one. Can you clarify how citywide projects might work with the having an eligibility criteria for being within a VMT transit priority area or mobility hub? So Melinda, how that actually reads on the application is located in or includes. So it would be those that eligibility for your jurisdiction. So as long as your jurisdiction has a mobility hub, transit priority area, and VMT, and it's a citywide project, it would count for all three of those. It looks like we have a hand up. Lizzie, can you see those?
Yes, I can allow them to talk. You can go ahead.
Lovely. Thank you so much. This is Catherine Rhodes. And when you started doing everything about housing, my main thing was the homeless, because 500 homeless people have died last year, and I don't see anybody coming forward or any cities coming forward with homeless solutions that can be funded with this. And for example, what I thought when it was brought forward was that not only city and counties, but all the taxing agencies, and that includes schools and special districts, just like SANDAG or water districts. And I believe they were supposed to be allowed to be eligible for this, and now we only have the cities and counties. I don't think that's fair for a lot of reasons. For example, Mayor Todd Gloria, the city councils and San Diego Housing Commission refused to meet with homeless advocates, just refused for 10 years. And we have areas where I think they should analyze, including the empty north side of Fiesta Island, South Shore parking lot, the Sunrunner parking lot, all located on state tidelands of Mission Bay for a homeless solution. County staff doesn't seem to want to step on city staff toes, and Mayor Todd Gloria won't do anything. But if we had somebody like SANDAG say, hey, let us look at your project and maybe we could bring it forward. So I thought SANDAG was going to be allowed to compete with the cities also, because, right now, this is useless to me as a homeless advocate, because anything we bring forward to the mayor, he doesn't even look at. And so we can't have any input. And so if we include the schools and the special districts, we could go to the school board and we could go to the special district meetings and actually try to get something and go around the mayor by using the policing powers given to the county through the homeless shelter crisis. And on the presentation, I really hope the city of Del Mar remembers our public state fairland properties are founded on former salt marshlands. I recommend they use at least 2 levels of subsurface basement foundation to future-proof against sea level rise and get rid of the seismic hazard of liquefaction. I also like the water and sewer main replacement projects. I think that's very, very important. And then you guys talked about this displacement. The city of San Diego and San Diego Housing Commission literally kicked out seniors out of SRO hotel rooms without relocation expenses in the former redevelopment downtown project area. And, so a total, they destroyed 10,000 affordable housing units. And we don't have a plan to put forward of how we can get this. I have a plan, and the plan is to go to the HUD OIG auditor and have the debt repayment to create 10,000 affordable housing units come from the successor agency. The successor agency to the redevelopment agency still exists, and they owe money, but they also own 10,000 affordable housing units they destroyed. For example, one really sad thing was, I think it was the San Diego hotel that turned into the federal courthouse. They kicked, at least 500 seniors out of that SRO, and then Civic San Diego or CCDC refused to do any relocation expenses. And then every once in a while, I'll make a little fuss and talk about, the lack of relocation expenses. And they'll do it for like one project or, another project, but they don't do it for the majority of projects. And they created this mess. And then let's see what else I have. I think that any project that's using any of this money, public money, should at least have 50% affordable housing, not just a measly 20%. So I guess I do have one question is, what percentage do they have to use for the poor and the homeless? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Catherine, for your comments. And we do not have a designated percentage within the application. And again, just a reminder to everyone that this particular workshop is about the call for projects and the application, and making sure that it's very clear before all of our local jurisdictions submit an application on the requirements and the eligibility. This is one part of the Housing Acceleration Program and the REAP funds that we use. We're just here today to talk about the grants that we're giving out as part of the local jurisdiction program. So I don't know, Stacy, if there were other questions in the chat that maybe we could move towards answering before our time expires.
Yes, there are 2 more questions. Will the PowerPoint presentation be available following today's meeting? Yes, it will. We will be sending out an email with follow-up, and it'll also, this recording will be available on BidNet. And then a question from Encinitas has gone through a prioritization effort for locations that have been identified to be in need of mobility improvements throughout the city for the capital projects and implementing the prioritized projects. Do we need to ensure that the mobility improvements are within the TPA or mobility hub? Yes, the state, in terms of approving our criteria, any of the projects need to be within or include a mobility hub, a TPA, or a low VMT area. Any other questions? I can't see hands. Lizzie, are there any other hands raised?
No other hands raised, but if anybody has questions and they want to ask via raising their hand and, saying it out loud, feel free. We have some time left over. Definitely want to answer any burning questions you all have.
Who will be scoring the applications? We will have a panel of scores for the applications. We do not yet know who will be on those panels, but we will have a panel for applications as we normally do with our SANDAG grant programs.
And if I can add to that, the panel will include not only internal staff, but also applicants from outside, either in educational facilities, having to do with maybe social equity or housing, and other applicants as well. I mean, other jurisdictions that haven't provided applications.
Any other questions?
I see one in the chat. Can you add the call for project link to the email with the presentation? Yes, we can do that.
And then to access all the grant materials, we need to log in through the portal, correct? Yes, that's correct. Log into BidNet. Anything else? Well, if there's no more questions right now on the workshop, here's just some additional information. So you can email the grants distribution at sandag.org for the technical assistance, and housing@sandag.org if you have any additional questions about the call for projects or anything like that. And we hope a lot of you will be applying, and we hope to fund some really great projects in the area.
I see one question in the chat. To access all the grant materials, we need to log in through the portal, correct? Yes, you would need to go through BidNet. I don't know if Jenny or Tracy, if they need an account just to even download the documents, but maybe you all can answer that.
Yeah, you will need to have an account, and that's what connects you and has the ability for you to apply. So that's why we're not trying to be mean. We want everybody to go to BidNet, download all your material. That way you're notified when we make changes. So yesterday I did post some changes in there. We updated the application, we updated the call for projects, we posted the resolution. So once you have your account, it's going to keep you up to date. You'll see when answers to questions have been posted, and that's where you're going to submit your final application when you're ready. So please make sure that you go through there. And if you have questions, definitely reach out to us, and we're here to help all of you.
Great. Then we can give you back some time in your day. Thanks, and don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you all. Enjoy your afternoon.